Okay, so here I am back at Paradise Park. It's Friday, July 21st, 2023. It looks like my cards there are still on the bulletin board. That's good. Okay, so I'd like to talk about the emergency government tax legislation for tiny homes and to address the outrageous wealth gap. Well, there is no emergency legislation at this point, but I'm calling for the emergency tax legislation that I'm going to recommend in this video. So what we see here is that there was a $100 billion surplus and it kind of went poof. Last I checked, there was over a $30 billion deficit. However, this does not mean that people shouldn't pay taxes. It means that they should spend our tax money more effectively and more efficiently. So that is key here, right? So anyone who gets from that, hey, that they shouldn't raise taxes is not using their heads, because how the money is spent is key here. You can make food programs. You can build affordable housing. So there's ways to pay more taxes that save you money. So a lot of people jump to the conclusion, they say, hey, you know what? Let's not raise taxes. But that is exactly what needs to happen, especially as we see that the working class has lost 25% of its wealth since 1985. 25% of the wealth. So it's okay for the wealthy to tax the working class to the point where they lose 25% of their wealth since 1985, but it's not okay to raise the taxes on the rich in order to end homelessness in an effective manner, in order to solve child hunger. It doesn't make any sense. That leads me to my next point. They've done studies which show that 92% of people think that the rich should pay more taxes, and that the wealth distribution should be more favorable to the middle class and the lower class. 92% of people. So if we truly live in a democracy and 92% of people think that the wealthy should pay more taxes, why aren't they? Okay, is it a kleptocracy? Is it a government by the corporate thieves? Or is it supposed to be a government for the people? This leads me to my fourth point. We need new emergency wealth taxes, as well as very affordable taxes for the less than rich, in order to address many pressing issues like child hunger and homelessness. We also need 2% vice taxes, because a lot of problems have been occurring from people smoking cigarettes, starting fires, drunk drivers, what have you. So everything that's a vice, cannabis, cigarettes, alcohol, just 2%. It's not that much, just 2% on top of the existing taxes. It would bring in $10.4 billion or so nationwide, okay, if we do it this way. Which leads me to my fifth point. We need a moral committee that has record-making efficiency, accountability, transparency, and service to allocate the new funds with $30,000 per unit imperatives for tiny homes, with land purchases included, with AC and running water. Now, I know this can be done. I just saw on the news that some company bought 5,500 acres or so by the Travis Air Force Base for $800 million. You know how many tiny homes you can build on 5,500 acres? You could build like 80,000 tiny homes there. And then only spend $800 million on it. And you could probably build them for about $22,000 each or better, with running water and AC if you buy them in bulk and you spend the money carefully. It's pretty straightforward. There's no other way it could be. So that leads me to point number 6. I call on the American people and the politicians to come together and pass this plan immediately as an emergency plan. It's not the only tax plan that needs to be done, but it's the first phases of wealth taxes in order to make it easier for the wealthy to pay it, because some of them have a lot of money in assets and investments, and they're not so liquid. So if we start off with a $200 per month on average progressive tax for the rich, and $5 on average for less than millionaires a month, okay, then it should be something everyone can handle. It shouldn't be a big deal. So that's what needs to occur here. So as you look at this thing, you say, okay, what are the principles here? What's the philosophy here? Passing this plan immediately is a no-brainer. Just when we look at the wealth distribution alone, why would the working class lose 25% of its wealth since 1985 and the government not raise taxes on the wealthy to correct this injustice? So it's the difference between being wise and being foolish. living for justice and living for injustice, living for righteousness and living for wickedness, being perceptive and being senseless, being insightful versus being dull, having sense versus being lame, being careful versus being careless, chasing virtue, pursuing virtue versus chasing blood money when there are 22.5 millionaires and billionaires in America alone and 9 million people starve to death a year in the world. The difference between the highest cause versus being a mere conformist idiot. Okay, it's the difference between a transcendent martial art hero and someone who sees it more like him versus a mere worldly, pseudo-scientific fool with selfish lifestyle. It's the difference between being deep and being shallow, being loyal versus being scandalous, being divinely motivated versus mere psychology. It's the difference between moral honor versus extreme disgrace. Thank you.